let's welcome Jim Kirkpatrick.
Hi Lars, how are you doing?
I'm good, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks actually. Yeah, I'm doing alright, thank you.
Last time we talked, earlier this year, you were getting ready to release your new album, Ballad of a Prodigal Son. And since the release, it's had some fantastic reviews in the media and airplay on the radio.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, to be honest with you. It's blown me away. I mean, I worked on this solo album on and off for quite a few years with lots of different people, and you kind of wonder whether people are actually going to be interested in what you've got to say away from your main sort of act, really. So I kind of put it out, not really expecting much back from it. But as you say, the reviews have been off the scale, really, and it's had some great airplay, and I'm really, really shocked, to be honest with you, and I'm really pleased. But, of course, the problem is I've got to follow it up, which is the biggest issue. But this is the album, Ballad of a Prodigal Son, there, which is available from our website. But so it's, as I say, I'm really happy with the response that I've had to it.
How many tracks are on there, Jim?
There's 12 tracks on there altogether, and features a whole host of guests and lots of people that I've worked with throughout my career. Feature on those songs, and they're pretty much all, there's one cover, but they're all written by me and one or two with a few collaborators.
That's good. I have heard several tracks from it, and it's what I would say a guitar player's album. It's rocking. There's some great vocals on there too. And as I say, earlier in the year, in the pre-production stages, you were getting quite excited about a list of artists you wanted to be on. Who did you have on in the end?
A lot of contributors. I mean, there's some contributors to the writing who weren't actually performing on the record. So, for example, I wrote a track with Bernie Marsden. Unfortunately, he couldn't play on it because when it came round for his session, the pandemic kicked off, and he doesn't have a remote recording facility. So I couldn't get him on it, but we wrote a song together, so he is part of the record, and the same thing with Steve Overland from FM. But on top of that, there's all sorts of guests. Jem Davis and Digital keyboard players from FM are on there. Bass legend Neil Murray's on there, which I was really pleased to get Neil. Actually, folk songwriting sort of legend Thea Gilmore contributed to a track. And from Status Quo, John Rhino Edwards plays bass on a song as well. And
he's actually on the single Gravy Train, is that right?
The album's all original, but there's one cover on there, which is the song Gravy Train. And that's a really obscure quote song. And Rhino wrote that with Rick Parfitt. That was a track I always really liked, Gravy Train, and when I was doing my album I didn't have a song with that kind of feel, and I kept thinking, I need something like Gravy Train, and then I just thought, well, hang on, why don't I just cover it? And it's so obscure, I think unless you're a massive Quo fan, you're not going to know that song. I mean, I would never want to cover Whatever You Want or Down Down or anything like that. So it just sort of seemed like it was going to give the song maybe a second chance, maybe. And of course, Rhino was so pleased that I was covering it that he absolutely jumped at the chance and sort of offered to play bass on the track, which he does brilliantly.
I love the video. What's the story about the Oregon train there?
A chap called Mark Greenwood did it for me, and he's actually he's a massive Quo fan and has done little bits and bobs for Quo and the guys out of Quo. We had a couple of themes, obviously trains, and then the other one was gambling and stuff like that. So Mark found the footage, and then he would kind of send an edit to me and say, "What do you think of this?" And I just sort of said whether I liked it or not. And I would throw a few ideas in, but he did a brilliant job on it, absolutely brilliant job.
And it's a great song anyway. I liked it I've always liked it when Quo did it, and you can hear Rhino's weighty utterance. I actually did some gigs with Rhino, and we did the Quo songs as well. And I could swear he was using a metal pick. It's all in his fingers.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm not a bass player. I know if you pick harder to the bridge, you get more of that percussive sort of sound, that kind of pick sound or whatever. But I mean, he's a great player. He's very influenced by Andy Fraser out of Free, and you can really hear that in his playing, actually.
Yeah.
He really is he's a pleasure to work with.
Changing the subject slightly, you are of course known for your role as a lead guitarist and vocalist in the classic and legendary band FM, UK band FM. But thanks to COVID, obviously, world tours that you're accustomed to are out of the window at the moment. Yeah,
I think when we spoke last time, we were just about to go on tour, so we were. I think we finished up. Ironically, the last gig we did was almost a year to the day. Actually, as we speak now. I mean, last year was fantastic. I mean, we did a festival tour where we did a main stage thing with Kiss, Whitesnake, Def Leppard, and us. So we opened for Kiss on half a dozen shows or something, and played some of the biggest gigs I've ever done in my life. And we were in America at the end of February, beginning of March, and we were kind of aware of this virus thing that was going on, and it wasn't kind of as big a deal, I think, in the States as it was here. And while we were in the States, people were calling from home saying, I think maybe you should come back and not go to Australia. And I'm so glad we didn't go, because I think I'm right in saying Australia, no one's allowed in, no one's allowed out. It's on the run from rain. I ain't got no money to stay out all night. I had me some better, but I won't lay down. Well, I'll play my last hand in this old town. Well, I learned my lesson and I played the game. But I never change. Never gonna change. But my daddy always told me you gotta fight to win. Yes, I'll never learn, 'cause there's no such thing as a sure thing. No such thing. No such thing as a sure thing. No such thing. A few years ago I came up to see you in deepest, darkest Midlands, in the middle of England somewhere, to photograph all your guitars, so many guitars, and we were with this spooky garage with an old car, and there was a coffin and a skeleton in it and some really ghostly fairground rides. Where exactly was that? That was in a village called Aldlam in Cheshire, but it's right on the Staffordshire Shropshire border, so you kind of are just about still in the Midlands. And Well, that belongs to that's a house of a really good friend of mine, whose name, believe it or not, is Billy Gibbons. He is not the Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top fame, but he is a musician, and he's a dedicated rockabilly. So that was where we were there, and I actually filmed the video of the title track, Ballad of a Prodigal Son, in that same place, actually, in that same garage, because it's just so photogenic. And since we were last there, he's done loads of work to it, actually, so it looks a little bit different. But it's a cool place to do a photo shoot or a video shoot for sure.
Yeah, we had a great day, and aside from having several heated discussions of what should be put on oatcakes, the local delicacy, we photographed a lot of guitars, and there's a lot of Music Man guitars there. Are you still into Music Man guitars?
Yeah, well, they're actually Edward Van Halen signatures, which are basically a sort of Music Man, really. I have one here. Oh, nearly dropped my stand. So this is an Edward Van Halen, a US-made Wolfgang guitar. I kind of played one of these by accident a few years ago. I'm really a traditionalist with guitars, and I'm not sure what you can see here, but I have a Strat here, and a Les Paul here, a Telecaster there, and a Martin there, a P-bass on the wall behind. But with FM, I definitely need the old Floyd Rose. And I tried one by accident, actually. I walked into my local guitar store and somebody was playing one. I thought, that sounds good. I never really liked the look of them, but once I played it, it's really comfortable to play. And of course, I'm starting to get on a bit now, Lars, so it doesn't hurt my back, which sounds a little bit kind of wimpy and not rock and roll, but they're just, look, a lot of people have signature guitars and they never really use them, or they use them occasionally. Edward Van Halen designed this and used them for 30 years or whatever. And he was quite a good guitar player, if you've ever heard of him, So I reckon if Eddie thought they were good enough to use for 30 years, it's good enough for anybody, really. But they're a little bit different, but they're a great tool to play with. And I've owned quite a lot of them. I still own a few of them, but that's my number one, that one. That's a US one. That's a great guitar.
Excellent. Of course, the late, great Eddie Van Halen. What a loss. Crikey, we all learnt something there. So you've obviously been busy in lockdown. Are you still writing new albums for yourself, or FM on the horizon?
Lockdown presenting actually some opportunities. I'm quite fortunate that I'm in a position where I do get asked to do quite a lot of work. I know there's a lot of people who really haven't had anything to do and very few income streams and things like that, but I've been quite fortunate in the fact that we put an FM album out, I think April, May time, and again we haven't been able to tour that, but of course with all this free time there's little excuse to not crack on with another one. So we're actually releasing a live album from the last couple of gigs that we did, and I think that's out April 21. But we're well into writing a new studio record, which we're hoping will be out early part of 22. Then of course, my solo album, which I kind of spent years mucking about with really, and sort of thinking no one would be interested in, but it's had such a great response, and then I've had quite a lot of offers of work coming for the back end of next year in 2022 with my solo thing, that of course it's the old story that I've had years to write the first one, and now everybody's saying you need to have the next one finished, by summer next year, and that's like, So, really got my writing and demoing head on, and trying to get that going. And on top of that, I'm writing a record for a singer called Chris Uzi, who's he sung with a band called Snake Charmer with the White Snake guys, and played with lots of bands, worked with Jason Bonham and stuff like that. So this year I've written an album for him, and Nigel Glockler from Saxon's playing on that record, and a few people. So that's really out and out rock. That's pretty heavy for me. I put an album out this year with a thing called the Chris Bevington Organisation, which is a huge 10-piece collaborative band. But I'm doing a lot of writing actually, and today I've been, or I am. I can't say too much about this, but I'm sort of playing guitar on a charity album, but there's a lot of very famous musicians on it, which is great, and I'm doing the bulk of the guitars, which is great. So I virtually get to play with actually some of my heroes and a lot of legends, which is brilliant, really. So and it's at times like this, it actually shows how great people can be, really. And when I've had friends in the business saying, look, I can't pay you a fortune or whatever, but do you want to do this, or do you want to be involved in this, or I can give you a few days work, and etc. And it's quite amazing really what comes out of it. And also, being on the road all the time, which I am, finding time to write and record is really precious.
I think a lot of guitarists, musicians are in this boat. They're finding lockdown, obviously it's disaster for live work, but they are finding it helpful to create and write. Jim, it's great to have you on the show. Where can we keep up with all the happenings of Jim, and where can we buy the album?
My website is jimkirkpatrick.com, and you can find all the sort of news and updates on there. You can buy autographed copies of the albums on there, which are also available at usual outlets, Amazon and streaming services and all that. But obviously, if you want to help your artist, your favourite artist, then go to the website and you get an autographed copy, or autographed copies, or dedicated copies, or whatever from there. And I'm on Facebook and all the usual sort of social media outlets. So that's where you can find out what's going on.
That's great, Jim. Let's hope the COVID trauma sorts itself out. We can see you out playing with all your buddies live on the road. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Lars. Thanks for having me.
I'm on the green.